Alright, hello. If you're watching this, you probably saw my other video on Linux over on Green Hoodie Cat. I'm actually making this before that video is even finished, but you probably saw it, and there's more I want to talk about. So, I guess the logical place to start off would be my experience with Linux. My experience with Linux started around, like, February of this year, and, I wanted to switch to Linux for a while because, one, I outlined it in the video, the AI stuff, but another part of it, too, was honestly seeing someone customize their Linux to look like, Windows XP. And I remembered, oh yeah, Linux exists, and Windows 10 support is going to end at some point. So, you know, here I am just kind of walking around the gym in my high school, because whenever we'd have, like, free days to, like, choose what we want to do on Fridays, I wouldn't do any sports. I would just do laps around an empty, like, one of the empty gyms. Or a full gym. Either way. Whatever ended up working. So I was doing my laps around the dim even gym, looking at my phone, like, researching. And at the time I thought, desktops and distros are the same thing. But I found a few. OpenSUSE looked pretty cool, but I might have misunderstood, but they said, like, their KDE Plasma version was, like, getting discontinued or something. I don't know. So I didn't do that, but KDE, who made, like, you know, KDE Neon. I did KDE Neon for the same reasons that I said I did in Green Hoodie Cat. Go watch that if you want more context. And I stuck with KDE Neon for a bit. And eventually I was like, it's a pretty good distro, honestly. It's not as bad as people say. However, if you start customizing it, it can be a little iffy in terms of performance. So I decided, okay, well, I haven't gotten VR working at this point, so let me switch to Linux Mint. Let me try Linux Mint. And I get Linux Mint Cinnamon. It's pretty good, though it has absolutely terrible multi-monitor support. I can't have my panel on both monitors, and, like, if I do, then, like, the apps that show up on the panel are per monitor. It sucked. It was awful. And, so what I did is I switched to Linux Mint Xface. But I didn't. Instead, what I did was I installed the Xface desktop on Linux Mint Cinnamon, which, as you can imagine, caused issues. But I could do it. And the only issue that really persisted after me, like, tinkering about was, like, the sound mixer not always showing. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it could have been better also. I was enjoying my time, but, like, games are running worse, and I didn't know why. Later I found out it's because it was an X11 only distro, or the desktops are only X11. Meanwhile, Wayland is what, like, actually runs things, like, better than Windows for me. X11 will, like, will just, like, make the games, like, run slower, and, like, the desktops will be less stable, or at least Plasma is less stable on X11. So I had to go for, like, a Wayland distro. But the thing that made me switch from... what is it? The thing that made me switch from... Xface, the thing that made me... not Xface. The thing that made me switch from, Mint is I used my drawing tablet, and it was stretched across both of my screens. X11's multi-monitor support strikes again. Actually, this ended up happening on my layer installs, and I realized I just had to install the XP pen drivers, but KDE Neon just worked out of the box, so I assumed it wasn't a driver issue, so that's my bad, but X11 still performed worse, so whatever. That's a valid enough reason, even if I didn't know. So I tried Manjaro, because SteamOS is based on Arch, and has Plasma. I'm like, okay, SteamOS seems cool, so I'm gonna go for an Arch-based, Plasma desktop. And I realized all my beloved .deb packages don't work anymore. Ignore my phone. I didn't know about the AUR, by the way, don't at me. So within a day, I switched to... well, actually that night I was looking good, stable Linux distros on my phone. On, what is it? Like online, or whatever. I was on my phone, in my bed, at night, searching that before going to bed. The next day I switched to Debian 12 at the time. I didn't even last half a day on that because it had Plasma 5 and I wanted Plasma 6. So I searched up other ones, and I've been hearing of Tuxedo OS when it comes to, what is it? Stable Linux distros that run on KDE. And I hesitated to use it because it was a little more niche. Everything I heard of it was like really good, but it's like, you know, it's a little more niche, and like there's not a massive community behind it. All you really have when it comes to that is the subreddit. But you know what? It's Ubuntu based, so all of my Ubuntu commands and packages and everything work. I do actually prefer Ubuntu over Debian, by the way. I know people are like Ubuntu based. I don't prefer base Ubuntu. I know a lot of people are like, just use Debian if you don't want the Ubuntu nonsense, but Debian doesn't have as good of repositories, and also it like takes a while to update. Those are really my two main things. Might not sound like a big deal for some people, but I see the value in being able to easily like sudo apt install Steam and Firefox instead of like having to find like the debs online. And also, what is it? And also you can't like add apt repository in Debian. So, you know, I have to basically go back to the Windows way of downloading like software. And I don't really want to do that because the way Linux does it is so cool and I love it. Anyways, you know, like maybe like an hour after using Debian, I decided, okay, screw it, I'm gonna do Tuxedo. And it's perfect. It's Ubuntu based. So, you know, like my knowledge carries over, and if I'm having an issue, I can just search up Ubuntu or Debian and like online for like if I need help. And also there is a subreddit. It's not very, their subreddit is mostly based around their laptops because Tuxedo OS or Tuxedo is a laptop, like Linux laptop manufacturer or something, and they just put their OS on it. But however, their OS is, I believe, open source and is still like downloadable on like regular desktops without any compromises. So, yippee! But yeah, Tuxedo OS is great. Like it's stable. It has the stability of like Debian. It doesn't have the snap packages of Kubuntu or the instability of KDE Neon. And it has Plasma 6. It's the best of all worlds, at least for me. By the way, like genuinely, I only have like one issue with Tuxedo OS, that being that you have to configure swap memory manually. Everything else is great. You know, Tuxedo Computers, if you're watching this, I wouldn't mind a sponsor. I wouldn't mind a free laptop. I wouldn't mind a free laptop. Anyways. But yeah, that's my. I've been going with Tuxedo OS for a while now. I've been using it for months, and a few weeks ago I reinstalled my OS, but mainly just because it got kind of messy, and I installed the same. I installed Tuxedo OS again because there really wasn't. I couldn't think of any better option for me. So yeah, that's two things checked off of my of my notepad full of notes. Yeah, I like Ubuntu-based distros. I don't like base Ubuntu stuff, but Ubuntu-based is pretty good and it works for me. How about the troubleshooting? Because I don't really go into it that much in the video. Which there is troubleshooting. At first it might seem annoying, but like with a lot of programs, like it's pretty easy to set up, even if it's a Windows program, like specifically games. Like you can't just go through the installer and have it be that, but like there's only one extra step, like just add the thing to like Lutris and then run it through there and it's perfectly fine. Not as user-friendly as Windows, I suppose, but, or at least when it comes to anything that is outside of Steam. When it comes to Steam, it's pretty much just as user-friendly, which is very nice. I love Steam. Valve and Proton are like the only reason I'm even using Linux. I don't think I could give up my library of games on Steam. But yeah, the troubles running certain things like compatibility, it is a thing. I kind of skimmed over it. I just kind of went over the part that was like, hey, you can make pretty much anything work. Pretty much. But I didn't actually go into the troubleshooting aspect of it, which can turn off people, I understand. like, there's a reason why I don't just go like, oh, you have to use Linux, it's so perfect. No, some people are more content with Windows, and that's fine. A good example, I have two good examples actually. The second example is like a separate thing kind of, but the main example is recently I was trying to play SRB2 kart with some friends, and I had to use like a VPN LAN thing, so like Hamachi or Radmin. We can't use we can't use Hamachi because it apparently requires you to sign in now. It used to not require that. And there are also some other problems too. It just didn't work for my friend. I don't know. But yeah, that was not an option, and every other option just kind of sucks. Like it's all like very sketchy websites. Like you have to pay for the service. Like it's not great. So the only option, like Hamachi is support on Linux natively, but the only other option is Radmin. Radmin does not support Linux. So I spent a while trying to figure out how to make Radmin work through a VM on Windows, so I could like bridge the connection or whatever the frick. I don't even know what half the stuff I'm saying means, to make it so that Radmin connection applied to my Linux desktop, and then I could play like SRB2 kart with my friends. Took a lot of troubleshooting, but by the end of the day I ended up figuring it out. Apparently the problem was, I guess it just doesn't work on Windows 7. I had to install a Windows 10 VM. I only use Windows 7 because that's the only VM I had of Windows, but whatever. It worked after doing Windows 10. And I don't know, that's just so cool to me. Like, yes, it got frustrating, but like, it was so cool and fun to like see that I can make it run in a VM and like, it works. Like, I don't know, like finding roundabout solutions like that is kind of fun. And just to like quell worries from anyone who thinks Linux is all this is just like an edge case. Not everything is on the same level as like trying to set up like a VR headset or like Radmin. A lot of stuff will just work. Like if it's not drivers or like network things or whatever, it'll probably just work. And if it doesn't work, there's a way to make it work without as much hassle as I went through for Radmin. Troubleshooting in Linux is just generally more pleasant than troubleshooting on Windows though, because like I said in the video, Windows doesn't let you see anything. On Linux, I can just open a command prompt, or a terminal rather, and see exactly what's going on and copy paste the error code into DuckDuckGo. I actually use Brave Search. I don't use the browser, but I use the search because it gives me better results than DuckDuckGo. But unrelated, Windows. By the way, Windows absolutely hates Linux. If you install Linux after installing Windows, apparently that's fine. But if you install Windows after installing Linux, it hates you. It is nightmarish. When I first installed Linux, it was going well, but sometimes my drives would become inaccessible. Why? Because Windows would just grab a hold of them and make it so I can't use them until I repair them on Windows, because they're NTFS drives. Cool! Apparently too many read-write things on NTFS drives sucks. And this is probably just my hardware, by the way. I have Linux on another computer, like somewhere else, and I don't have any of these issues with NTFS partitions, but this was a thing on like my main computer. So eventually Windows 10 just basically killed itself after a while of this happening. So I installed Windows 10 again and backed up all my files onto my other drives, which I emptied out. All of like my important files, like all of my art and videos throughout the years. I copied all of those across multiple different drives because I have one 2 terabyte external and all of my other drives are like varying sizes that aren't 2 terabytes. So I did that on Windows. Then I went into Linux and I formatted the big 2 terabyte to ext4, and then I moved everything back and I formatted the other ones to ext4 as well, and now everything is ext4 except for my Windows install, which I use for WMR for my HV reverb. No, Monado doesn't work for me, don't say anything. That was a nightmare. Trying to like remove all of the ways like Windows like just forces itself onto every single piece of your system is a nightmare. Not the general experience I've noticed. Like a lot of people can like dual boot on the same drive and it's fine. like Windows and Linux. I think I just got unlucky with like my hardware combination or something. I don't know. Either way, it works now. And I don't have to deal with any NTFS weirdness. Windows would also, for some reason, keep on deleting my boot entry for Tuxedo OS because I installed it again after installing Tuxedo OS. Great, awesome, love you, Windows. I haven't found a way to fully fix that, but it happens infrequently enough to where I can just like very easily do the process if it does happen. I don't want to reinstall my Linux distro after reinstalling Windows. Like, I just don't want to do that. So I'm not. It hasn't happened in a while, so I think it's fine. Speaking of Linux on other hardware, I have another computer, like, over at my dad's where I have a partition for Linux Mint. I tried doing Xbase, but things just weren't working, so I did Linux Mint Cinnamon, which isn't the, like, super lightweight version like Xbase is. But my god, does it run so much better. Like, Windows takes forever to boot up on that computer. Like, that computer is, like, a low-end computer from, like, it was considered low-end, like, when did we get? Like, in 2018? Like, low-end to mid-end at best, but probably low-end. Like, it was considered, like, low-end back then, probably. I'm not a hardware person. Feel free to correct me. But I'm not really giving you any information to correct me with, so I don't know. And it hasn't been upgraded since, so not the best of computers. And it's not like Linux Mint makes it, like, run 20 times better, but it boots up in under a minute. Like, it takes maybe 40 seconds, and then, like, another 20 to load everything once I sign in Linux Mint. On Windows, it would take, like, 10 minutes to load the freaking, like, to load everything, and once I sign in, there's another 10 minutes of slowness because it's, like, loading everything. It sucks. It sucked. It sucked. Why does Windows prefer it so bad? And also theming. This is the last thing I'm going to talk about, because I said I would. And this video is getting kind of long, and I don't want these videos to be super long if I do more of them. My theme. I've gone through a lot of themes. Mainly I use Plasma, so it's usually Plasma themes. But, on Mint I liked using Dark Cold. On Xface, but I think it's also a Cinnamon theme. Though on Cinnamon I like using Cinnamox. Cinnamox Heather, that's a really nice looking theme that doesn't look super, like, flat, but also not overwhelming. I love that theme. I wish I was on KDE. But, yeah, Cinnamox Heather and, Dark Cold are my favorite themes for, like, non-Plasma desktops. For Plasma, however, I'm sorry. You probably saw it in the video. You've seen it in previous videos. I have to go with a Windows 7 theme. I can't help myself. Windows 7 is just so pretty. And, in the video I used a, like, less accurate Windows 7 theme because that was, like, right after I did my reinstall and I didn't feel like setting up Aero Theme Plasma, which is what I usually use. Which is, like, the very one-to-one looking recreation. But I have that installed now, so that's good. I think also using a one-to-one, maybe not one-to-one, but very close Windows 7 theme on a video where I'm trying to, like, differentiate Windows and Linux probably wouldn't have been a good idea anyway. Yeah, I always come back to Windows 7, like a Windows 7 theme. I don't know, it's just so pretty, and I'm so glad that the functionality is there for me to, like, have that. You can do that on Windows, of course, and I don't want to, like, diss the efforts of, the people who, like, work on those programs that help you theme your Windows, because it really is quite impressive, but it's not, like, officially supported on Windows. It's very hacky, and I've heard multiple stories of, like, things going wrong after the install. And not to say it's perfect on Linux, like, at least with my Windows 7 theme, it's not like this for other themes. Like, when there's, like, a full-on system upgrade, I do have to, like, reinstall it, and for some reason, GitHub developers can't, like, just provide everything pre-compiled. Thanks. But yeah, those, like, full-on system upgrades rarely happen, at least on Tuxedo OS. So, not a biggie. And, like, everything is encouraged to customize on Linux, so it doesn't really, like, break from me just, like, doing nothing but using my computer. Either way, I feel like there's two ways this video will be interpreted. One is, wow, Linux sucks and is so complex. Or, like, these are some pretty cool things with some caveats, but I'm willing to sacrifice those things. But, I don't know. Use whatever, like the video said, use whatever OS you want to use. I just really like Linux. I like the freedom, I like the theming. This video is more so just like my experience with Linux rather than me yapping about like everything Linux can do and is capable of. So keep that in mind. All I will say is Linux doesn't run League of Legends. Meanwhile, Windows does. Which means Linux is better. Thank you for watching.